Good morning, adventurers. My name is Ben, and welcome to a morning show where I sit around, drink some tea, and talk about D&D. So first up for D&D today, I have my greatest uncle in the universe mug that, again, I got for pet sitting a rabbit. I do not have any nieces, nephews, or otherwise. It's just an odd thing for me to have, which is why I enjoy it. And inside of said mug, we have some... there is no good way to show you guys this, really. There we go. Vanilla chai from Bigelow. This is not one that I have a lot, but I do like it quite a bit when I do have it. I don't know why I don't really have it all that much, but it tastes pretty good. So, there you go. Getting into what we are talking about today, it is Thursday, which means that it is my favorite day of the week, for doing the show at least, because that means that it is Third Party Thursday. And today, on this lovely Third Party Thursday, we are talking about the Epic Legacy Tome of Titans Volume 1. I do not have other volumes of this. I don't know that they have published other volumes of this yet, but I will be getting them when they come out, because this is a cool book. It's really, really cool. This is by 2C Gaming. It is obviously written to work with 5th edition, so if you're interested in that, definitely check this out. I got this off of their Epic Legacy Kickstarter. It came as like a set of 3 books. I want to talk about this one today because this one I think is probably my favorite one out of the set. So let's actually get into what this is. So Epic Legacy as a whole with 2C Gaming here is, I believe I talked about Legendary Adventures at one point, is the 21 to 30 system that I had talked about. Epic Legacy is another 21 to 30 system that obviously 2C Gaming, as I mentioned, has developed. And this is their big bad book. This is the book where they lay out all of the monsters that you can use in an epic level campaign like that to actually pose a real threat to your party members. And by golly, do they pose a threat to your party members. Jesus. So, contained within this book, we have a series of different monsters. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 different monsters that you can use in your epic level game. And I keep saying use them in your epic level game because I cannot emphasize enough that these things are terrifying and will absolutely ruin your day. And by your day, I mean it will ruin your entire table's life. And by life, I mean their characters will be wiped from existence, never to be seen from, heard from, or remembered ever again. Which, by the way, that's a fun mechanic if you can wipe people's memory of somebody that had existed. Just throwing that one out there for you. Anywho, so 22 different monsters in this book, all ranging from they are in a special classification system ranging from Mythic 1 all the way up to Mythic 10. The classification system honestly does not really need to be explained, other than 1 is the easiest of this Mythic section all the way up to 10 being the hardest of the Mythic section. Please do not get this confused with Mythic monsters from 5e as they exist currently, because it is not the same thing. They have standard and then mythic versions of each of these creatures, and the standard ones have a CR that falls within the general parameters of 5th edition as it is made and balanced, but the mythic versions are just labeled as Mythic 1 through Mythic 10, whatever their actual ranking is, because they just don't, they don't fit at all. At all. Because these things are like the best of the best, really. Like, they are crazy in here. To give you an idea, Cthulhu is in this book, and it is a Mythic 8 monster. The Mythic 10s are Asmodeus, the Demogorgon, and the Primeval Tarrasque. We're talking like scary here in terms of big monsters. So let's go ahead and let's pop one of these bad boys open and actually take a look at it. We're not going to be looking at one of the ones that I just mentioned in there. However, what we are going to be talking about is we're going to be talking about one in here that I really, really enjoyed. It should be a shock to nobody that there is one that is a dragon type thing in here, and that is the one that I want to talk about today. So we're going to be talking about that one. It is called Sute. S-U-H-T-E. Sute. Sute. I was calling it shoot for a while, and then I realized the U and the H were in opposite spaces. So it's not called shoot. It's called Sute, I think. But I'm sure that there is a much better way to actually pronounce that makes it scary and doesn't make me sound like I'm doing a really, really awful accent. But that's fine. So each of these 22 different monsters come with the same general setup in their section. Each of them spans like 10 pages or more because there is so much information on them. Because really, again, what this book is it is a BBEG machine. Like, they have done a lot of the work for you. They have laid out a bunch of stuff for you, and you are working with just finished big bad territory right here. And that is what they are handing you. So the Draconic Celestial Judge Sute. To kick things off, you start with a description of this thing, which is a literal physical description of it, as part of like the introduction section. It's actually the preface almost, I guess, to each section, because there is an actual introduction in there as well. Also on the first page, you get a profile, quote unquote. I'm doing quotes with one finger on each hand. That's not how that works. You get a profile where it gives you their personality, ideals, bonds, flaws, and the general legend surrounding them in like shorter sort of text, I guess. It's not like pages and pages and pages of this thing. That's what the rest of this chapter is. It gives you a brief description, and then it gives you a like campaign idea, essentially, which is sort of the introduction to this actual monster section. So it gives you a campaign layout idea here. It gives you a rough idea for a kind of campaign that might feature your given monster, in this case, Sute. It gives the introduction, the conflict, and the conclusion sections of that. The introduction being like how you actually go from the start of the campaign to the part where they actually begin to engage with the thing, not necessarily in a fight, but begin to actually understand what is going on with this epic creature that they are actually going to have to deal with at some point. The conflict is from that point where they essentially first hear about this thing all the way up to right before the final fight, or conflict, I guess. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. That is the conflict section of it. Then the conclusion section begins with either the roll of initiative or the first contact that you make in the like final interaction between the party and whatever your monster is, all the way through the end of the campaign, obviously. It's just one of those things where it helps sort of like give you a framework to work within, which I do actually really appreciate when you're working with a monster that is like this and just so far out of left field. It has to be something that you are using for like epically high level campaigns and nothing else really. In here, for this section specifically at least, there is another like little legend here that has like maybe a reason that the creature that you are trying to fight has a reason to be around or something like it talks about an evil dragon god kind of, or dragon ruler kind of thing in here. By the way, here is a picture of Sute, whatever you want to call it. It looks like a Yu-Gi-Oh monster. It really does. Like, it looks like one of the Blue Eyes crazy evolutions from like 2008 when they were doing all the movies, and Blue Eyes Shining Dragon just kept getting crazier and crazier and crazier. It looks super cool. Then it has a section in each of the chapters on challenges associated with the monster, which is really, really cool because the way that they actually do this is they break it down into exploration, social, or combat challenges. So you have the 3 pillars here broken down for you specifically so that you can pick and choose, or use all of them if you really want to, each of these different larger challenge encounters in order to make your way through leading up to the actual conflict associated with this monster. So for this one, in the exploration section, it has 3 different exploration options, essentially, wherein... or no, sorry. Doesn't have 3 different exploration options. I'm being dumb. It has 2 different options for the exploration. It has 3 different sections that it talks about here. It has the regional effects and the layer effects as 2 of those sections, as associated normally with super, crazy powerful monsters like this. And then it does have a couple of encounters associated with exploration. There we go. There is one in a library, and there is one in dreams. Just dreams for Suit, which is crazy. Also, one of its layer actions, to give you a general sense here, layer action here deals 8d8 radiant damage. Another one cleanses the creature of hostile magic and ends one spell affecting it. Another one is not frightening something. However, a non-creature or a non-lawful creature has to make a wisdom saving throw, and on a failure, it tries to move as far away from Suit as it can. It can't move willingly into a space within 30 feet of Suit, and it lasts for a minute or until that creature takes damage. That's not that's not frightened. That's not charmed. That's nothing like that. It just has to happen like that. So there are some really well thought out and crafted layer actions in this sort of thing as well. Important to note. Next up, we have social things. We have different social encounters that you can have in here. Again, 2 options for this one. This one specifically is Dragon Hospitality, and then there's one called Higher Calling. Both cool, different, very different options that are interesting to read. Honestly, the encounter options in this book are really cool to read because they are taking account for the fact that you are playing with very high-level characters, and there isn't a lot of published material that does that. And then combat encounters. It's a combat encounter with, the big guy himself. So each of the different creatures in this, they pulled a mechanic, quote-unquote, labeling system, essentially, from 4th edition that classifies each of these different monsters as a specific type of battlefield combatant. So Sutier is a brute, which means that he is like a bruiser. He's going to dish out a lot of damage, that kind of thing. Will be good at crushing people down. There's a bunch of different ones. I think there are 10 of them, maybe 15, to help you sort of get an idea going into it of how this character or this monster is going to play as the DM who has to run it. It lays out the tactics. It actually even has a section for easier tactics versus more difficult tactics, which is really, really funny to me because it's like, hey, we know this is going to be hard. If you don't want to absolutely brutalize your players, use this. However, if you want to make their lives the most difficult for about 2 hours, here you go, which is a lot of fun. Essentially, the way that this one breaks down is he has a specific feature associated with him called penchant dice, that he can inflict onto other creatures, and then when he successfully attacks them, force them to spend those penchant dice to deal additional radiant damage to them on that attack. It's really cool. It's a cool mechanic. It's a nightmare, I'm sure, to deal with as a player, and honestly, it sounds very difficult to keep track of, but you kind of just have to stack dice in front of people for that. And then there is the section here about the mythic version of him. Mythic Suit. It's very similar. They say it in pretty much all of them. Very similar to running the normal one, but it gets a couple of extra things. Plus, it gives you another little rundown of hey, you should really definitely try and do it this way specifically, which is, appreciated oftentimes enough. It also gives you the mythic effects that are associated with the creature. For Suit, you get Heart Sight. Suit automatically succeeds on any insight ability check that it makes to ascertain a creature's motivation. This individual, again, is a celestial judge, essentially, so that makes sense. If they're trying to deceive this thing, then they just can't, is essentially what it is. Oath to Order. If Suit remains in a 10-mile cube area for 1 week, it magically transforms the local environment into a flourishing ecosystem. Transforms any pollution, harmful magic, or other contamination simply evaporates. Evil-aligned creatures in the region must succeed on a DC 20 Charisma saving throw at dawn each day. Suit remains in the area or be compelled to flee at the region. And Swift Wings. If Suit knows the location of a creature, it can use an action to magically teleport to an unoccupied space within 60 feet of that creature. Suit can use this ability to travel to any plane of existence. The Celestial Dragon cannot use this ability to teleport a creature whose location is failed by magical means. Great. So that is all of the base information out of the way. Now we come to a couple of stat blocks. The first one is the non-mythical stat block. This is a CR 26 creature. It has a 23 AC, 779 hit points. Now the thing that really sort of sets this one apart is two different things. First one is obviously, as mentioned, those penchant dice. And the second one is the Power Word Smite feature. At least this is what it sets it apart to me. Power Word Smite allows him to create a 15-foot wide cylinder that is infinitely tall. It just keeps going. Of bright light centered on a point that it can see. And when it appears, each creature of its choice in the affected area takes 80 radiant damage. And then it can concentrate on the effect, as if concentrating on a spell, and use an action on its turn to move it around. Now, this thing has a plus 18 Constitution saving throw, so you are going to have to be dealing 80 damage to this in order to guarantee, 78 damage in order to guarantee that it cannot maintain concentration on that save. But of course, instead, it has resistances. Does it have normal legendary resistances? No. It has normal legendary actions. However, it has something called Mythic Resistance. If it fails a saving throw, it can expend one of its unspent legendary actions to succeed instead. So it does away with legendary resistances, because instead it can use a legendary action to just succeed on a saving throw if it wants to. Which means that you have to get through all of its legendary actions and then deal about 80 damage plus in order to break its concentration on its Power Word Smite. Or it can drop it. But why would it do that? It has a cylinder that deals 80 points of damage to every creature in the cylinder that it can move around as much as it wants. Again, this is the CR26 version of it. This is not the Mythic version of it. Instead, the Mythic version of it has a 29 armor class, 2,967 hit points, and retains a lot of the same features, except all of its stuff does significantly more damage. Significantly more. Power Word Smite. How much do you think it would be? You'd think, oh man, significantly more? Double? Wrong. It's 200 damage instead. 200 damage! And then, again, most of the other things are the same general thing. But it's crazy. And I did forget to mention, I didn't forget to mention, in the Mythic stat block, there is an action that it has. It gets 2 Mythic actions as well, that it takes on initiative count 20. It picks one of the 2 of them. It can't use it twice in a row. I don't know why I didn't just throw this in with the stat block. I don't know why I had it as a footnote afterwards. But the first one is called Avenging Might. Suit's rage at evil and injustice grows when it causes a creature to gain penchant dice via its Gaze of Judgment feature. It instead causes it to gain 5 additional penchant dice, the effective cumulative to a maximum of 20 additional penchant dice. That's a lot. Then the other one, and this is the one to me. I mean, both of them to me are ludicrous, but this is the one to me that is really drives it home. Suit roars. This is called Exalted Roar. Suit roars with a holy power, which can be heard by creatures up to 10 miles away. Each creature of Suit's choice that hears the roar must either use a reaction to praise the dragon or become vulnerable to radiant damage until the next initiative count of 20. So if you don't stop everything, burn your reaction, and praise the dragon, you are vulnerable to radiant damage. I'm sorry. Did you forget the part where I said the Power Word Smite does 200 radiant damage with no saving throw or anything like that? It just does it. Also, all the penchant dice do radiant damage. So you're real screwed if you screw that one up. But I don't know how players would even know to drop and praise it unless some like weird little lore thing that they picked up along the way was like, oh, you should definitely worship the dragon when you hear it roar. So that's the mythic stat block. Obviously, crazy. And then after those stat blocks, after the combat section of it, there is a set of resources associated with each of the monsters. This one has allies and rewards that go with it. So, it has a couple of different stat blocks for allies, including a Dragon Soul, which is a CR 15, and Celestial Clergy, which don't actually have a stat block. I don't know why I said a couple. Doesn't have a stat block. However, they are like its followers. And then there are the Redeemed, which is another sect of Suit's followers. Then there is the rewards section, which gives you, in this one, 2 different options, but in the other ones, a number of options. This one comes with a Feather Blade, which you can pick up. It is a 1d10 slashing damage that is light, finesse, and versatile up to a d12, which means that you can be a dexterity-based character and wield 2 of these without having to have the dual wielder feat or anything like that, and be dual wielding d10 slashing weapons using your dexterity modifier, which is crazy. That's a lot. And then there is the Platinum Coin, which is like a special item, artifact thing that is associated specifically with Suit. So anyway, by the way, Mythic 6. That is Mythic 6. That is slightly above halfway up the scale here. That is the level that we are talking about with the monsters in this book. It's such a cool book. It really is. I love it a lot. I think it is phenomenal. I think they do such a good job with writing these things. And so I highly recommend you check this out if you're interested in this kind of thing. It gives you really cool ideas for like end game stuff, even if you don't end up using the monsters that are actually in this thing. But the normal stat blocks are a feasible thing that normal-ish characters could technically take out. Kind of. Anyway, that went a little bit longer than I expected it to. Let's get on to the shows that we are talking about today. Today, it is Thursday, which means that we have a few of the big ones here, but only 4 different shows. We have Critical Role, we have Authors and Dragons, we have NADPOD, and we have LGBT D&D. Please check them out. Please let them know that I sent you, because again, someday they're going to say something to me about it, and it is going to be hilarious to me. That is all. Also, maybe one of these people will watch my show then. But that is everything I have to talk to you guys about today. So, thank you very much for making me part of your morning routine. I really do appreciate it. And thank you so much, in particular, to my patrons. You guys are the ones that make this show possible. If you're interested in becoming a patron, check out the link in the description of this episode. I really do appreciate all the support. But yeah, I think that we're going to end it with that, because I've done a little bit more yelling than I was expecting to in this episode. It's how it goes sometimes. So, don't forget, everybody. Drink tea, play D&D, and keep on rolling.